All right. Well, thank you for having us, Sergeant Millhouse, and if you can please walk us through everything that you know of assignments and get us all caught up on your on all the knowledge that you have. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I am a Sergeant Millhouse. I am the assignment and CO at AFPC for the CE career field. Can you all hear me? Okay. I am the assignment and CO. We also have Staff Sergeant Simmons, who's the other assignment and CO here at AFPC. Chief Master Sergeant Skolimowski is the FAM right now, and we have Senior Master Sergeant Mann, who will be coming in a couple of weeks to be the CE FAM. So we're normally a 3 deep shot. Right now we've been kind of slow with PCSing and things happening, so it's just been me for a while. So I know that there's a bunch of cases and applications that have been in and waiting, but please be patient because we're trying to get spun up on everything with it just being me for the last couple months. So we're just going to go over quickly a couple of the assignment processes that we do here at AFPC. So first, I know the big one that people love to have a bunch of questions about is BOP. So there's 2 different types of BOPs, first term airmen and career airman BOPs. So first term airmen, which I don't think we have any with you guys being MTIs and MTOs, but first term airmen, just so you know, they have to have an approved CJR in order to apply. So for 4-year enlistees, that's between the 35th and 43rd month of their time in service, and 6-year enlistee is between the 59th and 67th month time in service. They must apply for reenlistment because this is a reenlistment incentive. They cannot extend once they, if they get an approved first term airman BOP. Only the gaining manning matters for them. We don't consider the losing manning. And for first term airmen, they can only apply 1 time. So if it gets denied, they can't apply again. And we review first term airmen BOPs monthly. Career airmen, they have to have 41 months time on station to apply, 48 months to PCS. If they're vulnerable for overseas, that assignment, they cannot, that career airman BOP will not get approved. Losing and gaining manning matters. So if we can't support them wherever they are, they will not get selected or approved BOP. Career airman applications are reviewed quarterly. So every quarter is when we review those career airman BOPs. And if they're disapproved, the career airman has to can reapply 6 months after the disapproval date. It's not that they come back the next month and apply again. For Code 50 personnel, they can apply no earlier than the 12th month and no later than the 9th month of expiration date. So let's say you guys all on Code 50s. So let's say you had an expiration date of August 2022. So the 12th month, you can apply no earlier than will be August 2021, and then 4 months after that will be the last time that you are eligible to apply for a Code 50 BOP. Also, losing and gaining manning matters for those, and those applications are reviewed through MyPERS. And if you're meal to meal, only one person needs to apply for the BOP, but both must be eligible to PCS. So another big thing that we have issues with is everyone wants Florida, everyone wants California, everyone wants to go to Texas. It's probably not going to happen. CE is huge. Everyone wants to go to those places. So if you kind of think outside the box, so like if you want to go to California, try New Mexico, Arizona, that gets you closer to those locations. I know it's not where you want, but just think about that. And another thing, I have a bunch of applications of people applying for locations that I do not have authorizations for. For instance, Tyndall. There are no CE authorizations for Tyndall unless it's someone trying to go to Silver Flag. So if you put it down, it's gonna get denied. So if you're talking to your leadership, talk to your section chiefs. They should be able to tell you where you can go. Another place, a lot of places that I don't have authorizations for it would be like Keesler. So if you're just also the San Antonio area, a lot of people want to go there. So just talk to your your section chiefs and they should be able to tell you where you can and cannot go, or just call the base and see if they have CE authorizations there that you can go to. Joint spouse. So that's another big issue. There are 3 joint spouse intent codes. So joint spouse, there's code A, B, and H. A means you want to go everywhere CONUS with that person, with your spouse. You want to go on short tours at the same time with that spouse. So it doesn't necessarily have to be both of you guys are going to Osan. One can go to Osan and one could be in Turkey. You just want to go at the same time. Intent code B means you want to go everywhere CONUS with that person. You want to go on short tours, but not at the same time. So for instance, I'm joint spouse. My husband is about to go on a short tour, but both of our intent codes are B. So he's going and I'm staying behind, and then we'll meet up together when he comes back. So quick way to think about that is baby. Most people with babies, they don't want to leave the baby behind. So just think about like a family. So one is going and one is staying behind. And intent code H means you want nothing to do with your spouse and you want to be as far away from them as possible. You don't want to be CONUS, you don't want to be OCONUS, you don't want to be nothing with that person. So that is that. Joint spouse intent codes also for, we do not consider joint spouse for guard and reserve. If so, let's say I'm active duty, my spouse was in the guard. The Air Force does not recognize that. You both serve on your own right, and the active duty member is going to go wherever the Air Force needs to go. For inter-service joint spouses, we have to consider where that inter-service, where that other service member is. So you'll have to apply via CMS and then give us the assignment detailer of the spouses, and we will consider that way to make sure that we're getting you wherever your spouse is. That way there's no separation.
And sorry, Millhouse, Chief Bynes, you have a question?
Yeah, so what if I'm engaged and we have a plan of getting married? How does that affect my assignment?
Congratulations, but you're still not considered. You have to be married and on active duty to be considered for a joint spouse assignment.
And with that, what about for the members that have been divorced and that new, I guess we'll say with the new rule that they were talking about with joint spouses being able to be divorced but be close to their children? How does that apply to those members?
So then in those cases, everyone's different. So there's a lot of different entities that could happen with those. So we would have to look at it case by case and pull all the certs, look at all the documentation that they support to make that determination. So let's say there's a husband and a wife, they get divorced and then the husband gets remarried. So it depends on those joint spouse intent codes of if they're saying that they want to be together. That way we could get that husband back to wherever those kids are with the first spouse. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you just have to apply? Do you have to apply for that though?
For the child custody?
Well, do you have to apply to be close to your child with your custody paperwork? Is that how it works?
Yes. So there is a child custody assignment and deferment PSD guide that you can find on my purse. And it lists out all the eligibility and all of the requirements and documentation that you will need to submit via CMS in order for us to consider where we need you to go. So it's all still going to be based off the needs of the Air Force, but we would definitely try to get you as close as possible to the kids. That is the goal.
Perfect. That's awesome. One other question, if I back up on the BOP, what if I'm an instructor and I have a 4-year assignment and something happens and I leave at 3 years? Am I still eligible for a BOP?
No, sir.
Because it's
What do you mean
mandatory
leave at
for
3?
if I just ended up PCSing at 3 years, something happens and I PCS at 3 years, so I don't meet the 4 years time on station.
No, sir. You have to have that 4 years time on station.
Copy
And
that.
that's for, there's also policy started the program where they're getting the 8Bs assignments. So if they've gone through this whole process, they got denied their career airman, their code 50 career airman BOP between their 12th and 9th month that we discussed earlier. And then right before the cycle gets started, their respective cycle gets started, policy will contact us, the assignment teams, and ask us for locations that we can support to see if we can get members that way, get them an assignment that way. And I know in the email, I had a question about that, and they wanted to know if just regular instructors could get pulled into that. My answer would be no, because this was a program that policy set up specifically for the MTIs and MTLs as like a thank you. Everyone else would just get pulled into the cycle if they're on that code 50.
This is Master Sergeant Colquitt. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that question came from me. So I have 19 authorizations here in basic military training for 3E9s. So we work with the MTIs. So I know that was a handshake deal for MTIs, but I mean, we work in the same environment right next to them. So I'm not really quite sure why we couldn't be added into that. Maybe Chief Fines has more on that.
That was a program specifically that came through AFPC policy. None of the MFMs or anybody had a handling in that. I can ask policy if that would be something they could consider. I don't see that being a thing, because then they would have to open it up to every single AFSC that has instructors, but I could definitely ask the question.
Yes, ma'am. So the other thing that you guys had mentioned is the tour length. So I think it was 2019, they changed the tour length for AETC instructors to 3 years. So we're all on 3-year tours as far as I'm tracking, unless an 8 Bravo is on a 4-year tour that I'm not tracking. I know 3E9s, and I mean, just AETC instructors, AETC wide, are on 3-year tours now.
Correct.
Okay, so we're all on 3-year. So I guess what I'm getting at here is we're all on 3-year tours, but the MTIs, the 8 Bravos, are getting essentially a base of preference option that 3E9s are not getting, but we all
Correct.
work in T. And so that's
I'm
the
not,
issue.
yes, yes. I'm not sure why they came up with this policy. I can just ask the question to policy and see what their thought process is, because that would be a policy determination.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So the thing I would say is, I think what this boiled down to was a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force initiative for the DSD program for both the MTIs and MTLs, both the 8 Bravos, was that they go and they serve in these positions, in these special duty positions, and some of them were coming back, and I think the feedback was, I go and I do this, and then you send me to the middle of nowhere after I've struggled or fought this assignment for X amount of time. So I'm guessing that they were looking at it strictly from an MTI MTL perspective. But I'm also curious, and my son, I apologize, forgot your last name. But
no worries, Colquitt, no worries.
Okay. Well, what I'm curious about is how many other AFSCs are down there. How many people that would encompass? Do you have any idea how many other folks are out there besides the 3 E9s?
Yes, sir. We are the only AFSC outside of 8 Bravos that work in basic military training. That stripped and doing work alongside Bravos. So it's just us.
Okay, and you said what? That's 19 authorizations.
Yes, there are 19 authorizations.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll take that as something to kind of ask the question as well. And I know Sergeant Millhouse will too. But that's great information. It's great feedback. So I'll take that note down. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
So another thing with you guys being on those code 50s, you will get an assignment because you have to move part of the stabilized tour guide. So when that 50 is about to expire, you're going to be put into the cycle, into your respective overseas returnee and CONUS mandatory mover cycle. Unfortunately, you're still just going to be stateside with that. This is your time to go out wherever. So we go in when at the start of the cycle and we look and see where we need people, regardless if it's overmanned or anything. Is we have to move you guys. So we have to find somewhere to move you. So that's when we're looking at command of entitlement. Who is actually entitled a body? So it's not just that. So it's not just that Nellis has a vacancy for a master sergeant 3-6, but if they're low on that priority, they're not going to get it. It's who is entitled to get it. So who is racked and stacked within that manning at that moment in time that we're looking. So those are the allocations that you'll see posted on AMS, and those are the only locations that you guys should be adding to your dream sheet. So when we're going in and racking stacking, who everyone is that's coming back within that cycle, you have to put those locations. If you don't put those locations, so let's say, so code 50s are, I think, the third priority. So here's the priority groups. So the first priority are short tours who are dependent restricted. So that would be Kunsan. Priority 2 are your short tours that are not dependent restricted. So Osan. The third priority are all your long tours, anything accompanied or unaccompanied. And then priority group 4 are your code 50 personnel. So anyone coming back from a special duty or whoever just had a code 50 at that moment in time. And then priority group 5 are people who didn't even put a location that we advertised on AMS. So let's just say you are priority group 1 and I advertise Herbert Field, Langley, and Travis, but you decide to put down Minot. You're gonna go way to the bottom of the list and not be considered until everyone else above you has been considered. You have to apply for the locations that we're advertising. That's the only thing we're looking at. So that would be your window. You can find this, you can find what window you're going to be on MyPers and click assignments, and the schedule will be right there.
In regards to submitting only the locations that you guys are advertising, would it be wise to also just put, like, if I want to move to Georgia and just put Georgia, or do I need to define which base in Georgia?
Good question. And I didn't mention this during the BOP process. So you can put that, you can put the state there. Or you could put Moody, or you could put Georgia. Those two will get you that location. For BOPs, which I didn't mention, BOPs are a base of preference. If you put a state, it will be skipped because it is not a base. So what I've been trying to do, when I get the cases, if I see it and I see a state on there, I kick it back and tell you I will skip it if you do not put a base. So if you want Moody and you put Georgia on a BOP, put Moody, because if you don't, it will get skipped. We will not consider all the locations on a base of preference. But for the AMS ads or for the cycle, if you put the state, that's perfectly fine. Any other questions about that?
Copy, thank you.
Also, enlisted assignments, we do not take names. So you can call your chief, you can call the MFM, you can call the career field manager and ask to get you an assignment. It's not gonna happen. The enlisted side, we do it fairly. So everyone has to do it the exact same way. That way we keep it fair. So we do not take by name assignments. Unless we're talking about AMS ads, but you still have to go out there and apply for in order to get those ads.
One question did come up on the chat is this is the enlisted authorization on AMS. I'm assuming he's asking if the enlisted authorizations are on AMS.
So I actually went out there and I looked about a month ago. I think I was talking to an MFM about it. So they have the authorizations, but they don't have what's actually there at that moment in time. They have, so if you want to know if a staff sergeant 3/6 is at Peterson, you can go out there and look, but it doesn't tell you how many are there or if it's available. It doesn't tell you any of that. So, I mean, it'll tell you if you can actually, like if there's a position, like if there's actually authorizations, but it doesn't tell you if anything is available. So, I mean, you can look at it, but it doesn't give you all the information that you really need to make a good judgment call. And AFPC is not allowed to give out manning, so please don't call or put in your MyPurse tickets. I cannot give out manning because it's constantly changing. So as soon as I put in an assignment, I'm going to cancel another one. So it's constantly changing. And if you call and ask and I tell you something, I can guarantee you 30 minutes, the next day, 2 days later, it's going to be completely different. So therefore we can't give it out. Let me look at your.
And I can also share a perfect example as I had someone ask me, hey, can you tell me what openings there are for a tech sergeant 3E7? And whenever I looked at it, there were a couple openings for that time period. And I said, hey, you could try these two. And then they came back and said, hey, these were both denied. What else could we possibly put down? And at that very moment, I looked and there was nothing. And so that's just how quick things can change. And so if you're ever being told to maybe try this base or that base, it's literally a snapshot in time and it's a roll of the dice that's still available. But I will say that one of the things I've noticed of recent is we have several career fields, one being 3E2s for tech sergeants, 7 levels in general. And for a lot of tech sergeant 3E7s, we're just full up. Every base is at 100% or better. And so the sad part is, even though you're authorized to put in for a BOP, it doesn't matter what you put down. It's just going to get denied. Now, as Sergeant Millhouse was talking about, once that whole process works its way through, and then policy comes back and they say, hey, Sergeant Millhouse, I need you to give me 3 or 4 bases that you can send a tech sergeant 3E7. Even though they're at 100%, she will still give them the 3 that need a 3E7 tech sergeant the worst. And then they work through that process with the individual. But only until it comes down to that time is she authorized to do that. She can't break the 100% up until that point. So I just kind of share, I mean, I've been in seat 5 months and that's some of the stuff that, that I'm learning along the way. So I just wanted to share that. Over.
Another thing, don't use what we post on AMS. So like when you're looking at the overseas, when that listing comes out, don't base your applications, your BOP applications, your follow-on applications based off of what we're advertising on AMS, because again, there may not actually be, it may be actually be overmanned, but they're the least man in the whole command. So we needed to, and someone is needed to move. So we needed to get someone there. So don't base those applications based off of what's posted. The best way is to contact the chiefs, contact the base to see what's actually there, because that's the only way you're really gonna know. So did anyone have any other questions? So I'm looking at the email and I did see question number 2. Someone asked, can AFPC add a requirement to the job announcements that the T39s serving at JBSA Lackland they must have be BIC qualified before they arrive. So I talked to the fam about this, and that's already built into the requirement. AETC already built that in. So it could be a number of reasons why there's been a disconnect. It could be the member decided to change the RNLTD. It could be anything as to why there's not an overlap. But that's already been built into the requirement when AETC builds it.
Hey, ma'am. So
Yes, ma'am.
are you talking about like, so the replacements are supposed to arrive, you're saying at least like 3 months early in order to give time for them to attend BIC? And is that what we're talking about, like the overlap window? Or are you talking about
Correct.
they're supposed to be BIC qualified before they come? Okay. All right.
Correct. Yes, I
Yeah, so-
verified it with the family. He said that was already AETC built that in.
Okay, so I've been here for almost 4 years now, and I can tell you that that's absolutely not happening. We are definitely getting the replacements after the person they're there to replace PCSs. So there's definitely gaps. About every year and a half, there's significant gaps in the number of qualified instructors we have.
Okay. Okay. I'll bring it up to the fam again, and maybe he can engage with AETC to see if they can change something.
So for example, we have looks like 2 or 3 instructors leaving between August and November of this year, and we have no projected inbounds.
Okay. Okay. All right. I will give him a call once we're done with this and find it out for you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Are there any other questions that you guys can think of? I know this is a small crowd, but any other questions that you guys have heard come up that maybe because this is being recorded, you could ask, even if maybe you found the answer out at some point, but something that could be brought up here that after this is over, somebody could come back, watch it, maybe be educated on anything from the instructors, from the 3E9, any of it.
Chief, so Master and Clockworth again. So I think the 2 big topics for the 3E9s were addressed as far as the basic preference goes, and then just the assignments overlap. The other things, special duty pay is still being worked by our career field manager. We didn't make it this year, but possibly in the future. Because we aren't getting any special duty pay. We're not getting any extra clothing allowance, and we work in the same BMT environment here. So totally understand that 8 Bravos are getting the full special duty pay. But I think for what we do here, that we should be justified to get at least a portion of special duty pay. But that might be for a different conversation.
Yeah, no, well, and I guess from my perspective, and I mean, some of this stuff I'm just hearing for the first time through this process, but I mean, with 19 authorizations, I don't feel like this is a huge feat. It's not like when it comes to these assignments, doing the same for you guys, or, the special pay. I don't see it as being a big deal. Now, if it was a couple hundred people, you could be adding a little more churn on assignments, or, you're talking a little more pay, what have you. But I don't know. I feel like that we should be able to get some ground going. So, I mean, I think this is a good place to start the conversation. And I know it's already been started in the past with the fams and stuff, but maybe we can get some traction going. I can even chat with Chief Collison and kind of give him a heads up and maybe get traction there as well. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. And that's probably the greatest thing about doing an assignments brief like this. And it just brings up conversation, kind of gets momentum going again on some of these topics. So I think there was a question on a
Yeah, they asked about
Yes,
humanitarian. What specifically, because that's handled by a completely different office. So if you're applying for a humanitarian, the humanitarian office will take care of that, and then they will come to our office. The only piece that we have in that is to see if Manning can support in what location. And then we give that back to the humanitarian office. They load it, they have that conversation. So past that, you would have to contact that office. Manning. Okay, so again, so we just have to make sure that Manning can actually support. So like Chief Ryan said, like the 3-2s, we tapped out. So if we're already at 100%, so now we're going to see who's in that line of command of entitlement, who needs it the most, who needs that body the most, if that makes sense.
one of the things that we came across here at IAFA was a person having to have to take a humanitarian. So they came out of the career field. They came into a 9 Lima position as a translator, and they are here assigned as a humanitarian assignment. So don't think that it's only going to be specific to your career field. You can go into another career field that is open to other AFSCs, and you can get assigned closer to home for your 2-year period while you take care of things at home.
Correct. So if whatever so let's just say the person applying for a humanitarian to see person, so they will come to me, and if I give them locations that the humanitarian can support, then they'll go into that process of retraining. But that's all taken care of with the humanitarian office.
Sergeant Millhouse, something I would like you to touch on is the fact, I think there's confusion, especially whenever I got into the seat, I had confusion on the fact that when medical is involved, when we're talking EFMP assignments, that if you could just touch on how that process works and how our hands, between myself and between your office, our hands are tied because of the medical side of things. Could you just touch on that?
Yes, Chief. So again, EFMP worked in a completely different office. I honestly have no idea where they sit in this building. But I know how to pick up the phone and call them. So the process is we hit the member for an assignment. They go through the medical process to get qualified. If medical says that they can't go to that location, then medical at the base will contact the EFMP office, and then the process will work that way. I've heard the process takes like 4 to 6 weeks, but again, that's worked at the EFMP office. Once EFMP goes in and does whatever they do, they will contact the assignment NCO to see where we can support that member. And then we give those assignments, those locations to the EFMP office. EFMP will then at that point go and check and see if medical can support that member there. If they can't, then we come back and we do it all over again and give them more basis to see if they can support. And then once they can support, they will work with the member to get that assignment loaded. But everything is off of me. Correct. Yes, you can. If you're already selected for a humanitarian, if you're already selected for an assignment, you can still apply for EFMP or humanitarian. It'll just get diverted. If it's approved.
Can you also touch on the fact that you don't get notification when somebody gets an assignment canceled through medical? You don't necessarily get told, hey, we just canceled this assignment. That basically the first time you hear about a medical being an assignment being canceled due to medical, you end up hearing from the gaining commander, or you hear from the individual because they don't call you.
So what happens is if a member, so let's say we have a tech sergeant going to Turkey. If that member is medically disqualified, the member themselves is medically disqualified, what's supposed to happen at Air Force Form 422, supposed to be generated by medical. The member should take that to the NPF, and the NPF is supposed to submit that through CMS to our office. That way we can cancel that assignment. That's the process. So it's a 422, not the 469, which is the profile form. The standards form, the Air Force Form 422 is what we need to cancel that assignment. And then we could go in and start talking about reselects and things like that. Until then, I have no idea. And I can't do anything until I have the Air Force Form 422.
Awesome.
Question came in, is the child custody program mentioned earlier only available to male parents?
No. So if there is a military member and a civilian spouse, then you could do that as well. The PSD guide for this program, you don't have to, states that you don't have to have been married, but you have to have that child custody, a legal document from a judge signed saying that you have a custody agreement. So it's not just male to male, you could be military to civilian, and we can still get you to those children. But you have to have, if you were married, we need to see that divorce decree, we need to see the child custody agreement, the birth certificate, the DD form 1172 that you can pull from DEERS, showing that they are your dependent. We need all of that information to determine if you can be a part of that program. Any other questions?
Question, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So you said BOPs are reviewed quarterly. Is that at the beginning of the quarter, at the end of the quarter, or do you have a better time frame?
It comes out at the beginning of the quarter.
Copy. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that roster is also pulled by systems, and then it comes down and we work it that way. So systems will pull everyone that we've updated an application for, and we'll get this big long roster, which the last 2 months has been over 200 names, and it's just been me to work all of this. So please bear with me as I get all these applications reviewed.
And then follow-up question to the child custody program. Is that program permanent, or do members have to continually reply each assignment or each cycle?
So we enroll you into that program, and you're enrolled until the month of the youngest child's 18th birthday. So if you have 3 kids, whoever was born the last, you will stay in that program until you either retire, separate, or we reach that youngest child's 18th birthday, the month of that child's 18th birthday. But you can only stay on that child custody deferment code for a year. So you can't do it consecutively. So if you do it once, you have to PCS again, and then you can do it again. That's to prevent homesteading and just people just staying in one location. Because it's still the needs of the Air Force. The Air Force needs you to move.
Any other
Anything else?
questions?
So what you're saying is if I divorce my wife, have her move to Hawaii, then I can apply for the program. Sorry,
No, you can only go stateside.
sorry. I'm just, hey, I know how people think. I know how I think. So had to throw that out
Yeah,
there.
Hawaii and Alaska is not included because for assignment purposes, they're considered Oconus. So only the landlocked locations. And the PSD guide specifies if you're Oconus, your DROs will not be curtailed. So you'll have to wait until that DROS is coming up to get an assignment. And it won't be curtailed for this reason.
Is that why Patrick is 700% manned?
I wouldn't doubt it. So that PSD guide you can find on my purse. If you log into my purse and type child custody, that PSD guide will pop up. And then there's also templates in there of what needs to be in those templates. So if you just copy and paste those on a Word doc, and that's the best way to do it.
I would also throw out here, I know one of the things when I'm working with Sergeant Millhouse, she reviews folks' dream sheets a lot when it comes down to she's looking to place somebody somewhere. She doesn't just say, hey, this is the need. She'll also look at folks' dream sheet. So I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, but I know that it's important to keep that updated accordingly, because if you have nothing on there, then I know Sergeant Millhouse will say, well, this is where I'm going to send you because you don't have anything on there. So I don't even have anything to consider.
Yes, so I'm nice. So I like to look at at least give it a chance to see where they want to go. Because I would want someone to do it for me. So I at least try to consider it. Your Patrick's, it's not gonna happen. Eglin, the Florida bases, everyone wants to go there. It's not gonna happen. But before I just completely just go left and just give you where the Air Force says you need to go, the Minot, the Grand Forks, I at least try to look at their dream sheet. But if there's nothing on there, you're gonna get where I need you to go. Because my job is to manage the numbers, is to manage where to make sure everyone is kind of equal and we're not just overmanning Florida, we're not overmanning California.
One of the rumors is that if I have a 4-month-old dream sheet versus somebody that has a 2-week dream sheet, the 2-week dream sheet has a higher priority just because you know that they are wanting to move somewhere. Is that true? Do they both have the same? It's just based
They
on the
have
numbers.
equal weight. Yeah, it doesn't matter when it's updated. They
Okay,
have equal weight.
copy. And then do you all consider the members' previous assignment history when selecting them as well?
No, sir. We do not. Usually if something like that happens, which is very rare, especially with our senior master sergeants is really when we really start looking at that, because now we're talking about career progression and things like that. The MFMs will engage with me and then we'll have that conversation to see if that's something we can move around. But with our junior enlisted, they're just going back. If they've been there before, they're just going back. Anything else?
Any other questions before we wrap up? Well, thank you so much, Tech Sergeant Millhouse, for all the information, and Chief Fines for taking the time out of your day and giving those great inputs. And this will also be out in the interwebs. We'll make sure to post it on the 3E Teams account, so that way you can send it out to your friends and they can get this brief after the fact. Thank you all for being here, and I'm going to stop recording.